Shifting gears to Shelson Silver, who was convicted of corruption several months ago, but the former Assembly Speaker has not spent a single day in jail. Federal judge just ruled he will remain free throughout the appeal process, which could take quite a while. Here's my point. We had investigation. We went through the normal criminal process. They had their day in court. They were convicted. I, for whatever it's worth, agreed with the conviction. Why exactly do they get a pass when the four of us wouldn't?
First of all, they're not getting a pass. And
you don't think they'll see inside of jail?
It's easy to be hyperbolic about this one. It really is. Because any issues of public integrity should be treated with the indignancy that you're treating it. I believe that in all good. But the Virginia decision is real. The law on this is real. Them not being a flight risk.
There's a distinction with a difference between what the governor of Virginia did and what Silver did.
Well, no, there actually is, because you don't even come close to Shelson Silver being caught on tape saying, if you don't give me that, I'm not giving you the $250,000 grant. So when you really, but the fact is, that's right. That's right, but the law matters.
Richard,
the law matters. So
as I say,
finish the sentence.
Go ahead.
Just one point.
You ran this state.
The one thing you know about the speaker is he's not a flight risk and he's not a danger to the community. So being out on bail is pretty SOP.
Okay. Richard, as I said from day one, I know you don't agree with this, but from covering the trials, I am telling you again, that neither Skelos nor Silver, in all likelihood, are going to prison.
Why?
Because one, Judge Caproni, who oversaw Silver's trial, she has said she thinks he's guilty, but she has admitted. I was in the courtroom when she gave the jury charge, and she admitted that the charge did not include the language that it should have had to reflect the possibility of the McDonald case. That right there is a brand new trial. He's not going to jail.
Folks, in the McDonald case, or how the Supreme Court ruled as related to it, you have to knowingly have a quid pro quo to basically be convicted and be able to, in fact, serve a punishment, including jail time. To me, what Shelson Silver did was even worse. Shelson Silver, through a position of authority, took taxpayer money and enriched himself by basically putting it to a fund to make sure that there was then kickbacks that he would get the clients and enrich his pockets to the tune of millions of dollars. How in any way, shape, or form?
You got to prove that.
They did prove it.
Richard, no, they didn't. See, the tabloids write that garbage every day.
Richard, that wasn't what happened in the court. That wasn't what happened in the court.
That was what happened in real life. That was what he did.
It may have happened in real life,
but it was not what he was convicted of. It was not what he was convicted of.
You got to prove it. And I'm telling you, Richard, it's not the same standard that we would apply as regular citizens.
Now let's pivot to our friend Dean Skelos. You were in the trial too for that.
Dean Skelos is going to walk as well.
And I believe so. And I think as egregious as what he did, it wasn't as bad as Silver. But nonetheless, Dean Skelos got his numbskull kid a no-show job, or a job that he decided to make a no-show job, and they have videotapes or audio tapes of them talking about burner phones and totally using the influence to get jobs, to get contracts, etc. Again, if that's not only not an abuse of power, which I know everybody agrees at the table is, how that's not criminal.
But Richard, but that prove a quid pro quo.
Why is that not a quid pro quo?
Simply because they have burner phones? All that proves is that you had a burner phone.
The people understood and testified at trial that they believed that there was an implicit pressure on them to work with the state senator and also Junior here to get him a job.
Pressure to get Junior a job.
So they all acknowledge that, and he came from a position of power and influence to do that. And obviously a jury felt the same way. Again, how that's not a criminal offense that merits jail time is beyond me. And this is why, guys, people hate politics.
Yes, it is. Well, they hate politicians. But you know what? Maybe given what, look, Dominic, I trust you completely when you say these guys are going to walk. Maybe we should spare the public the cost of new trials.
It's already millions of dollars.
It's millions of dollars. It's going to cost us millions of dollars more. We're going to add insult to injury
in this case.
And maybe what we should do instead, Richard, seriously, this is going to sound a little idealistic.
Like if a mob did this, if the mob did what they did, and a shakedown happened, and you had a RICO thing going on right now, family 1 and family 2 would be inside of Rikers.
I agree with you.
But
it's
Think
all,
about our
But I
standards.
agree
Those are
with
the
you.
laws that apply to the legislature.
I gotta ask you
Richard?
something. I mean, listen. Again, I think you gotta have hard lines here, and you gotta come down on people's who abuse
So what
the
is the
power.
hard line
But
now,
I do have
What's
to
the,
ask
no,
you.
no, no, let me use
That's
your
what I'm
words.
trying-
What's the hard line for a politician?
I'm actually trying to figure it out because, Richard, at some point you're criminalizing an industry. At some point, you're criminalizing an industry. I don't, if at some point I call someone, anyone, not an elected official, a not-for-profit, a labor union that I have a relationship with, and say, hey, can you give my son an internship? Is that violating some trust?
That's not in the area code.
No,
what
but
we're
I'm,
talking
I'm
about,
just
Scott.
saying, I'm
I
thinking
think we
at some
have to
point, that guy, give my son a job is, can you
But
give my son an
you
internship?
put your finger
Can you give
on,
my son
on
an
the problem that
internship?
exists to
At
me,
that
Nan,
point.
which is
Right.
it went from, and every night we talked about this trial, what was an attempt to define where the line was
Well, we're doing
between right, wrong,
Right,
okay?
exactly.
Now, once again, it's this amorphous shade of gray where you're connoting, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I've heard the argument from others too, that asking for an internship is the equivalent of what Shelly Silver did with our tax dollars.
Let me offer you this, and I'm just saying, look, we're going through a similar sort of thought process, and I don't want to turn this into a great big Hillary Clinton thing, but it's been, with evaluating the Clinton Foundation, the State Department, and her role as Secretary of State, was there a quid pro quo? It's like everybody's saying right now.
which we haven't proved.
There was a
$1
quid,
was
right?
fine.
There was
Go
a
ahead.
quid, but it's
Yeah,
but,
I
no, but
mean, my God.
there was a quid, there was a quo, but we can't figure out if there was a pro. All I'm saying is this, okay? Having been in elected office, we need to have something resembling more complete transparency. I mean, we should probably ask our public officials, and I mean this seriously, to hold every meeting in a way that's broadcast in some way, or broadcastable, or that's recorded.
impractical.
But I'm just saying, because there is so much that goes on that is inherently transactional without a word being said.
Oh, I'll give you
Well,
the
wait a second,
biggest one
but
is
sometimes transactional is the free flow of
Right.
commerce. Sometimes transactional is appropriate.
Sometimes it is, Scott, but that's not. But we need a better. We really
Listen,
need a
just-
better informed public.
I
And we
just
need,
will tell you this, Nan.
There's
I
an
will
awful lot.
Anybody I love who comes to me and says, should I run for state assembly? I tell them they're nuts.
But
For
then you know,
$79,000 a year, you haven't gotten a raise in 20 years. 20 years. Why do you do that
And by
to
the
your
way,
family?
it was designed to be
Why
a
do that?
1 or 2 day a week job.
Which
It's
it
a
should
full-time
be.
job.
Right.
So
It
I
is.
hear it, but
Because
I've
the
advocated, give them a raise, don't let them have an outside job.
Because
Give
the
them better be a
state,
decent raise.
this state is running too much stuff. The state has made itself so
See,
enormous
to
and
me,
so
this is a
elaborate
crock.
and so
It's a
invasive.
crock
It's
because
not,
I bring on
Richard.
lawmakers who are Republican and Democrat. It's not a party thing. That work.
It's not. I
No,
agree with you.
They take offense
I
every
agree with
time
you.
they'll defend the institution. As soon as the red light goes off, I'm in the commercial break. They'll tell me that bleeping, that crook's making us all look bad. And more than that, there is clearly people can't abide by ethics and still do their job. So I don't believe it's a pox
That's
on
not
all
true.
government.
That's
Of course
not
they
true.
can.
But
Good and decent people can still be elected officials without doing the BS that we saw
the fact
Skellos
is they
and Silver
do every day.
Exactly.
And the fact is
All
there are
right,
people
I
who
want
work
to
every
get
day,
to
work
I want to
hard
get to our
on the
last
job.
topic here, and that is the drug makers, more specifically Mylan. They're under fire, deservedly so, for dramatically hiking the price of a device called an EpiPen. Now the price went from $100 to $600 since Mylan acquired the rights to the device back in 2007. Company now trying to mitigate the effects by helping some patients cover some of the out-of-pocket costs. But the price is still the price. And if you think you've seen this song before, you have. Remember this guy? Martin Shkreli. Really bad guy. CEO then of Turing Pharmaceuticals, when it hiked the price of a malaria drug to $750 per pill from just $13 a pill. Dragged before Congress, testified the mess, wound up taking the fifth and clamming up here. Is it time for the government, because when we see what the free market did when they policed themselves here, is it time for the government to step in and stop stuff like this from happening? And for anybody who doesn't know, and you're lucky if you don't, for people who rely on EpiPens, this is a life-saving device here, okay? And the idea that every family could afford that kind of a hike,
it's
they
ridiculous.
can't. And for a little creep to do what he did with the malaria drugs just because he can corner the market, It's offensive.
Look, number
And if
one-
not the government, then who?
Well, the libertarian position is number one, that we have not seen. This has not been the free market at work. We have significant barriers to participation in this marketplace, which enables companies like Mylan to have a cozy relationship with insurers, with regulators, with probably with the FDA in some way. I mean, let's face it, their CEO is Joe Manchin's daughter. You see it
your
all the
position is
time.
this is the result of
That
not enough free market?
this is yes, exactly. This is the result of an unholy alliance between
reason why-
industry and government, Scott. It
The
happens
reason
all
why
the time.
an issue
and more
like this
regulation is not going to make it
helps
better.
Hillary Clinton's candidacy is because
No.
she has real credibility on national health care issues and recognizes that these issues are across the board, that families, both Democrat and Republican, have trouble paying for
everybody
their
should.
drug costs.
Yes,
and understand that corporations, pharmaceutical companies left unfettered, lead to violations
Tom, let me ask you
like
something.
this.
Tom, 1 second.
But
You have
they're
a kid.
not unfettered. This is the point.
You have a child that you've talked openly about that has had major medical concerns.
Epilepsy,
Right.
yes.
The idea that a drug manufacturer will wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to quadruple the cost of your
You
drugs.
already know it's disgusting.
But the point is, who do you have to turn to say, guys, somebody help me?
Honestly, no one.
Right.
Because
That's
government is not
So
fixing
I have
the
a
problem.
proposal. Let's see if everyone at the table can.
But
I'm a capitalist.
competitors-
Okay, Tom, I'm a
Okay.
capitalist. If I'm producing a life-saving product,
Yes.
like, for example, private fire departments that we have in this country right now, some of them tried to say, well, if you don't pay your $50, we're not going to come put out your fire. State governments came in and said, oh, time out. You can't do that. Private enterprise, you know, capitalism is great, but at a certain point, you don't get to be saved from getting killed or saved from a fire just because of the size of your bank account. The same thing should be, your kid shouldn't die because you can't afford. No, I know you do,
Richard,
but my
I'm
point
on
is,
your side.
I'm saying something definitive.
on the marketplace
You
side.
cannot raise the cost of a drug by more than 33%, I'm picking a number here,
Right.
without getting the approval from the FDA or Congress.
Well, but
no, but it's a black
Okay,
line
but-
here.
but
Wait, it's a
Richard,
black line. Why
Well,
not?
Richard, the problem is that the more regulators control the market, that's why Mylan can charge $500 for an EpiPen, by the way, which they should not be able to do. Oh, and by the way,
Wait, so should we
and
could
by
or
the
should
way,
not?
So the
excuse
FDA should
me,
let
Scott,
anybody go to market?
Free enterprise, I agree completely. Free enterprise only works, a democracy only works when everybody is responsible.
So they should
when
charge
people-
whatever they want in the interim.
No,
So should we or
they
should we
should
go with Paul
respond.
Richard's
They should
proposal?
respond to market pressure, and the way they.
This
they
is-
There
They
is no
should
market
pressure.
pressure. They're the only game in town.
This is
They
what
can't
happens.
buy this anywhere else.
there is a competitor that has.
But
that
now
has
you're
been in
asking,
a
you're asking the
compromised
parent to take a
position.
leap on an unknown product.
Richard, I thought your proposal was very fair-minded.
Okay.
It's very fair-minded, but money in politics, nobody's
But
going
you
to
know what?
approve that.
Wait
You
till
have
somebody
to-
dies from this,
but
and then we'll see if
Richard,
I'm
you
right or
have-
wrong.
but you
I got to
have
hit a break.
I mean, they're not doing something right. Don't get me wrong. But the reason they're able to do that
All
is
right.
because of government.
Last word. I disagree, but I'll give you the last word. All right. Very interesting conversation, guys. Got a lot into a half an hour plus. Coming up next, we will pivot. The Hudson River has an incredible history. This much we can agree on. Roosevelt, Vanderbilt, Rockefellers, they all lived there and had roots there. We'll speak to the author of a fascinating new book about the history of the Hudson since the Civil War.